to scripted statements by the president of the groups, not to mention the non-attached members who are excluded entirely. This format also fails to reflect the seriousness of the issue and certainly leads me to believe that this House is once again trying to sweep under the rug the numerous allegations against Ursula von der Leyen. Madam President, our job is not to protect Ursula von der Leyen. Our job is to hold her accountable. I therefore respectfully request a full and substantive debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will proceed, and I give the floor first to the first signatory, George Piperea.
Thank you, President. Dear colleagues, the motion of censure is a constitutional instrument meant to consolidate democracy. It is not a problem, it is the beginning of a solution. Today's motion talks about serious facts, about principles that have been broken. Lack of transparency, lack of respect to justice have been proven by the decision of the ECJ in the Pfizergate case, a decision that the European Commission chose not to execute. Regarding the efficiency of spending of public funds in the recovery mechanism, this has been a topic of the recent reports by the European Court of Auditors. Avoiding debate and decisions of the European Parliament is the reason why the European Parliament decided to sue the Commission, which is unique in the history of the European Union. In the last 6 years, the Commission has taken away in an abusive manner powers of the member states and ignored the European Parliament in its major decisions. Non-democratic concentration of decisions in the hands of the President of the European Commission goes against the principles of checks and balances. The decision-making process has become opaque and discretionary and raises fears of abuse and corruption. The costs of the obsessive bureaucracy of the European Union, such as climate change, has been a huge one. Economically speaking, small companies have failed, and risks for sovereign failure of member states of the European Parliament has increased. The fragmentation of the common market and double standards have increased the differences between the member states of the European Union. As an example, the little money that Romania attracted from the resilience mechanism has been used not for its development. Inflation that is out of control creates a social bomb. The burden of migration is on the shoulders of less developed countries. What is happening now at the border between Germany and Poland is a scandal, but it becomes something normal. Poverty, educational regress, all this has become normal things. Some commercial partners have lost their integrity if they ever had it. This is an industry of fear. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most profitable businesses than anything else. Fear was even stronger than COVID. When most of us were suffering during the COVID period, some people were using that crisis in order to become rich. But it is not crises that destroy the world, but the greed of those who are trying to monetize those crises. Today's motion, dear colleagues, invites the European people to start a process of reflection. I come from a country that has had a 45-year experience of totalitarianism. I assure you that not a single citizen from the Eastern Europe ever wants to relive those times. We refuse both the Soviet or Russian or Chinese model. In spite of any problems, the voice of the people has been heard. We are here in the house of the 450 million citizens of the European Union. They asked us to clean up this house. As Churchill said, this is the beginning of an end.
Now I will give the floor on behalf of the Commission, the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
President Metsola, honourable members, every month we meet here in this plenary to debate the issues that matter the most to Europeans. The daily struggles of workers and families, worried about the cost of living, the support we can give to small business owners, trying to take their company to the next level, or the need to provide real security as conflict and war rages across the world. And we will do so again in this plenary session. So, today, we can all make our own judgments about the merits of the motion in front of us, and each of us can come to our own conclusions about its real intentions. But what we have just heard from Mr. Piperia was clear for all to see. It is taken right from the oldest playbook of extremists. Polarizing society, eroding trust in democracy, with false claims about election meddling, attempting to rewrite the history, how successful Europe overcame the global pandemic together, from vaccines to Next Generation EU, spinning debunked conspiracies about text message. And there's a choice here. We can follow Mr. Piperia down his world of conspiracies and alleged sinister plots by what he calls Brussels, or we can clearly call this out for what it is. Another crude attempt to drive a wedge between our institutions, between the pro-Europeans, pro-democratic forces of this House, and we can never let this happen. We will never let this happen. But I also want to thank Mr. Piperia, because I believe it is vital that we have this debate here this evening, because facts matter, truth matters. But also because I recognize that there are members who may not have signed this motion, but who do have legitimate concerns about some of the issues it raises. That is fair enough. It is part of our democracy. And I will always be ready to debate any issue that this House wants, with facts and with arguments. This is also why I'm here today with my entire college to front up to these questions. So, honourable members, let me go straight into it. As a lot of this seems to go back to the pandemic, so allow me to start by taking you back to the very beginning. None of us will ever forget the tragic images of military trucks rolling through Bergamo at night, piled up with dead bodies, or when lockdowns were imposed, borders were closed, and crucial health and protective equipment was fought over. I remember all of those times when it could feel that there was no light at the end of the tunnel. But I've also not forgotten what we have achieved together, how a vaccine was developed in record time thanks to European science, how we ramped up industrial production after a slow start, how every member state was given the same access to life-saving vaccines, how every citizen, whether from a country big or small, east or west, north or south, was given the same chance. And this is the Europe of solidarity that I love, and this is the Europe that the extremists hate. We all remember how we protected workers through SURE, or got our economies moving again thanks to the green lanes and the digital certificate. And of course, we all remember the historic day we launched Next Generation EU to inject 800 billion euros in our economies, to invest in everything from health and education, clean tech to digital tech, SMEs to established industries. No one thought we could ever pull it off or that it would ever be agreed, but we did it together. And this, honourable members, this is the true story of the pandemic, not what the authors of this motion are trying to make of it. We should all be proud of it, and we can never let extremists rewrite history. And, honourable members, I bring you back to these moments because you cannot find them anywhere in the motion in front of you. And yet,
President von der Leyen, give me a second. Okay, all of you screaming. Excuse me. What? Excuse me. I have asked I let your colleague speak for much longer than his allotted time. Okay, so now we'll let the President of the Commission speak for as long as she needs to defend her motion.
I bring you back to these moments because you cannot find them anywhere in the motion in front of us. And yet, they are the essential backdrop to what we are discussing here today, because they show the unique and unprecedented nature of the situation we were in, how Europe came together after member states gave us a mandate to act, how it was this Parliament that immediately ensured the continuation of plenary debates to keep our European democracy active. And thanks to this, we had many debates in this House in the most difficult of moments. And these were so important because it meant that at every step of the way, we discussed openly and transparently with this House, with member states, with European citizens. It was all out there in the public domain. So yes, it is no secret that I was in contact with top representatives of the companies producing the vaccines that would get us out of the crisis. Of course I was, just as I sought advice from the best epidemiologists or virologists in the world. Or I was in touch with the United Nations organizations or with NGOs. But the implication that these contracts were somehow inappropriate or against the European interest is, by any measure, simply wrong. So, let me set the facts straight once again, and for you it's important to listen to that. Contract negotiations were conducted by Commission and Member States together. Every single contract negotiated was examined in detail in the capitals before being signed by each of the 27 Member States. There were no secrets, no hidden clauses, no obligation to buy for Member States. Indeed, just listen. All 27 Member States decided to buy their vaccines on their own will. So any claims that any Member State did not know about the contracts, about the prices or the amounts is dishonest. In fact, let's call it by its name. It is simply a lie. Honourable members, the wider point I want to make today is that this Commission will always be ready to work with you and to be transparent with you. And this is why, for example, I came to the Conference of Presidents to justify and explain the exceptional use of Article 122 for SAFE, our emergency defence spending proposal. This is exactly what I promised in my guidelines. The point is, I am committed to working with this House every step of the way. And I want to say that I hear your concerns loud and clear. And I will always be ready to be open about our work and find common solutions with pro-Europeans, pro-democratic forces in this House. And I will always respect the prerogative of this House, because this spirit of compromise is what democracy is about. But we should be under no illusion about the threats our democracy faces. We have entered into an age, and you hear it there, of struggle between democracy and illiberalism. We see the alarming threats from extremist parties who want to polarize our societies with disinformation. There is no proof that they have any answer, but there's ample proof that many are supported by our enemies and by their puppet masters in Russia or elsewhere. What we hear from you are movements fueled by conspiracies, from anti-vaxxers to Putin apologists, and you only have to look at some of the signatories of this motion to understand what I mean. But the real question here is, what do we do about it? I believe it is up to us to come together, find balanced compromises, and deliver for people. Because the rise of illiberal and populist politics does not happen in a vacuum. So the answer can never be to complain about how people voted. It must always be to show that we understand and that we will address their legitimate concerns. And this is what this Commission and this Parliament have been laser-focused on doing since the very first day the College took office. Thanks to this team behind me, this College that you elected, we are delivering on an ambitious programme that this House voted on, whether making historic steps towards defence and security, or boosting our competitiveness through the Clean Industrial Deal, whether sticking to our climate targets, or attracting the best researchers in the world to choose Europe, future enlargement, or protecting our farmers and our fishers, as well as the land and the sea they rely on. Whether addressing climate change, the housing crisis, focusing on skills and education today in our long-term budget. I will always protect the rule of law and the core values of our Union. And that's what really matters to the people of Europe. That's what they want us to discuss here in this House. So let's not play the games of the extremists. Let's stand up for Europe and let's deliver for Europeans together. I want to finish by addressing all pro-Europeans, pro-democracy forces in this House. I know that we do not always agree on every detail of every proposal this College has made. And I cannot promise that we will always agree on everything in the future. But what I can promise is that we will always be ready to work for compromise and work for unity. When the Commission sits down with the United States to negotiate on trade and tariffs, Europe must show strength. When we stand up for Ukraine's future, Europe must show strength. Or when we go to China to defend our interests, Europe must show strength. And this strength only comes through our unity. So let us come together. Let us keep delivering for Europe. Long live Europe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the different political groups.
We start with the EPP Group, Manfred Weber, 4 minutes.
Madam President of the European Parliament, Madam President of the Commission, dear Commissioners, dear colleagues. With this motion of censure, we are wasting time. Putin will like it, what his friends are doing here. Let's be brief from a MEP point of view. We will unanimously vote against this motion of censure on Thursday. Corona, Ursula von der Leyen said in us, we respect and we applaud the leadership Commission in the last mandate showed to rescue lives. But what this motion of censure means for tomorrow, what really is at risk on Thursday. In a few days, Donald Trump's tariff pause will end. Millions of jobs are at risk. Where are the MAGA friends in this House? Where is Orban, Salvini and Alice Weidel doing to save the job of Europeans? ? I tell you, Maroš Šefčovič and Ursula von der Leyen are defending the jobs of Europeans. That's why the motion of censure is taking the citizens' interests at risk. A second example, the future of millions of farmers and mayors, researchers are depending on European funds, also in Romania, I have to say. We need immediately now an MFF proposal. The motion of censure goes against the interests of farmers, mayors and researchers. And the third example, Putin is testing us every day. We need a European pillar of defense now. We need it urgently. And Putin's ambitions go much beyond Ukraine. He hates our European way of life. And I know the German AfD and the Romanian Aura are the puppets of Putin. But why is now peace joining this pro-Russian alliance? I'm wondering myself why this is happening. This motion of censure is against the security of Europeans. So we will vote against. We have now the first year of this mandate. Let's use also today's discussion for more general remarks. We have to clarify from an EPP point of view. First, we as EPP, we stand for European democracy. We saved the lead candidate concept. Von der Leyen is today Commission President, not negotiated behind closed door, but because EPP won the elections and she was our lead candidate. Teresa Ribera, Stéphane Séjourné and also Ursula von der Leyen represent a balanced Commission based on an election of 200 million voters last year. Secondly, we know where we can build up future. In around 90% of all local votes in the last 12 months, we voted together in the platform. That's the truth, and that is what we stick to. The third point I want to make. We, as oldest group in that House, we respect its political culture. And the European Parliament is not Westminster. May I remind you, on the last term, there was a debate about nature restoration law, about the combustion engine. And yes, the left policies were voted in favour without a platform agreement here in this House. And yes, this happens also today. The famous Venezuela resolution. We found a compromise on nearly everything, but finally the question whether we call Maduro a dictator was a splitting point. We were voting in favour of calling him a dictator. Socialists didn't do so. And dear friends, also for the Green Claim Directive, on content, a pre-approval of all ads from big companies is for us a bureaucratic monster. Others can vote for it. The EPP will not vote for it. And I tell you, that is not misusing democracy. That is exactly democracy. It shows different identities in our House. And again, to be precise, 90% in the platform, and I tell you in 3% of all local votes in the last 12 months, yes, there was a majority between EPP, ECR and PFE. But in the rest of the 7% of the votes on local votes here in this House, there was a majority between left majority and PFE against the EPP. That are the facts. And that's why I consider really to stop the debate we had in the last weeks about our credibility and our will to work together. Finally, dear friends, the EPP has a clear red line, pro-Europe, pro-Ukraine, pro-rule of law. Others follow now our definition. Tusk against Kaczynski, Peter Magyar against Orban. In Czechia, Fiala, together with the EPP friends, against Babiš. We are often the only chance to stop the authoritarian wave in Europe, and that's why we don't need any lesson in fighting against right populism in Europe as EPP. But, and that's my final point, but as a precondition For winning against the authoritarian, we have to listen to people. Emmanuel Macron was critical to the 2040 target, and the incoming Danish socialist presidency asks for further tougher measures against illegal migration. And that's why I tell you the EPP will take the people's concern in the centre of politics in the next 4 years. I thank the commissioners, Teresa Ribera, Stefan Séjourné and Ursula von der Leyen for their great work. They can count on the continued support of the European People's Party. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the chair of the S&D Group, Irache Garcia Perez. 4 minutes.
Gracias.
Thank you, President. Ms von der Leyen, sorry to have to say this, but every time Manfred Weber stands up to speak about this motion of censure, he actually causes more problems for you. Anyway, as president of the Social Democratic Group, I want to make it clear from the outset that this motion led by the far right will not receive the support of my group. Not because we defend the entirety of the Commission's course, but because we will not give a single vote to those who, like Orban, Le Pen and Abascal, want to destroy the European Union. This motion is not an act of scrutiny. It is a reactionary assault on the heart of the European project. And in the face of this assault, there can be no doubt we will stand where we have always stood, in defence of the European values of dignity, freedom, democracy and equality. Mr. Weber, it's rather ironic that you have been spending a year trying to defend pro-European groups, that ECR is a pro-European group, and now a member of the ECR has stood up here to defend a motion of censure in the European Commission. It's rather ironic, isn't it? How can we build Europe with climate change deniers, those who attack the 2030 agenda, those who despise science, want to silence women, defend Nazism, dismantle public services, or ally themselves with Putin and Netanyahu to destroy international law and annihilate Ukraine and Gaza? The far right does not want a better Europe. It wants there to be no Europe. What we want as Social Democrats, however, has to some extent been achieved. We've built the European Union brick by brick. We have combated authoritarianism, and we will continue to defend a Europe that protects, cares and liberates. But Mr. Weber, let me be very clear. This motion is also the direct result of the failure of your totally misguided strategy in the European Parliament. They ask pro-European groups to be responsible while they negotiate policies with the far right. Sorry, but it's not on. We need to continue working. Didn't you vote with the far right to block the ethics body? Wasn't it you who joined forces with the radicals to dismantle the Green Deal, launch a witch hunt against environmental NGOs, remove references to the child guarantee? Isn't it your group that uses the Petitions Committee to attack governments that are not from your political group, such as the governments of Spain or Slovenia? I think that's food for thought. And Ms von der Leyen, don't look the other way. Why did you announce your intention to withdraw the Green Claims Directive 1 day after the People's Party and the far right demanded it in a letter? To whom do you owe your support? Where is the commitment you made to the pro-European majority to preside over the Commission? No, the People's Party, I say to you today, who do you want to govern with? Do you want to govern with those who want to destroy Europe, or those of us who fight every day to build it? Respect the legislative agreement. Respect your word. And if you betray it once again, be clear that social democracy will lead the resistance. We will not give an inch, because in the face of hatred, in the face of lies, in the face of destruction, our response will be more Europe, not less, more democracy, not less, more justice, not less. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, on behalf of the PFE group, I give the floor to Fabrice Leggeri, 2.5 minutes.
Madam President von der Leyen, dear colleagues, Europe deserves better than silence, better than opaque operations, better than bureaucratic authoritarianism. For 6 years now, you have been heading this Commission, and it's a Jupiter verticalism that you apply, cut off from the people and all too often also cut off from the values that founded our continent. Pfizergate is not an administrative error, it is a question of abuse of power. 35 billion euros, the public denier, negotiated by SMS, without a call for addendus, without a mandate, without transparency. The Court of Justice of the European Union has upheld this. You acted alone, outside of any kind of democratic framework, and therefore it's not just your error, not your fault. It's not just your fault, it is actually symbolic of an even graver drift, namely the fact that Europe is being steered disregarding the people. Under your authority, the Commission has become basically the extended arm of corporations, foreign entities, sometimes far removed from our civilization. You talk about transition, but millions of Europeans are experiencing this as punishment. You call it a Green Deal. Our farmers, our craftsmen and women, our industrialists see it as strangulation, and what you call European values all too often look like censorship of the people, people who dare to think differently. So is that the Europe that you're defending, madam? A Europe where decisions are taken without any debate. A European that would sign trade agreements like Mercosur behind the backs of our citizens, and that would therefore pave the way for unfair competition. So no, I'm sorry, Mrs. von der Leyen, this Europe is not our Europe. Our Europe is the Europe of freedoms, the Europe that respects identities, sovereignties and democratic choices, the Europe that will protect, that will build, that listens, not the one that imposes. Today, therefore, we shall be voting in favour of the motion of censure. It's not just an opposition gesture, it is an act of responsibility. We're not just talking about stepping aside from you, we're taking this opportunity to say that another way forward is available. A Europe of promise, not just a system with the imposition of threats and standards. The people of Europe do not need an all-powerful Commission. What they need is a Europe that they can identify with in their image. So, if we want to send a strong signal, let it be the following one. The return of the political, the return of the people, and the return of the real. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the co-chair of the ECR group, Nicola Procaccini.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, President. Well, obviously, I won't be able to speak today on behalf of the whole group, but I will be able to do so on behalf of the 2/3 of the ECR colleagues who did not sign the motion. Not because they disagreed with some of the reasons for censure in the text, but rather because, like me, they consider this motion to be a mistake. It is a great gift to our political opponents, and it comes at the very moment when they are at their greatest frustration, when thanks to centre-right majorities, the likes of which have never been seen before, we are managing to bring some common sense back in here. There will be a free vote in the ECR, but this motion is doomed to fail, and we know it, without even getting close to the threshold of votes needed for its approval. So perhaps the left group will vote for it, maybe a few French or German communists might vote for it, or the internal naysayers of the Five-Star movement. But that's it. Unfortunately, it will be useful to the Socialists and the Greens, who will take advantage of it to call for a return to that same Ursula majority that is enslaved to their agenda and has already caused serious damage to European families and companies. I will vote against this motion as a European conservative and as an Italian, because I do not want to go back to uncontrolled immigration and environmentalism as a euphemism for communism. Because several commissioners today come from European governments that are supported and participated in by conservative parties with honour and dedication, and because I want to defend the work of the previous ECR president, the current vice president of the European Commission, the Italian Raffaele Fitto. So let me tell you one thing. I respect everyone's choices, but there is one question that comes right from the heart. How come today's petitioners never tabled a motion of censure against the last von der Leyen Commission? And that's the commission that supported the pro-immigration NGOs, it produced the Green Deal and the so-called Pfizergate. It was that commission that had as vice president the socialist Timmermans instead of the conservative Mr. Fitto. Well, of course, I know the answer to that question, and I feel no resentment. Well, now that someone has got his 15 minutes of fame, we'll have to start fighting together once again, side by side, to seek out the truth about the political scandals that have affected the European Parliament, to defend freedom of speech, to protect our peoples, and for many other good reasons. But unfortunately, some people like to lose, both at home and here. I don't know. We will not stop winning, building majorities on the contents and not on prejudice. This is our moment, and we will not waste it. Thank you.
Grazie. Now I give the floor to the chair of the Renew Europe Group, Valérie Hayet, 2 minutes.
Madame la Présidente, merci. Madame la Présidente.
Madam President, thank you. You've just heard from Nicola Procaccini. Mr. Procaccini is in a bit of a bind because they're divided. And then what about the Patriots? They want to bring the whole the EU down. But what about Ukraine, Middle East, Trump, Putin? Don't we need Europe in such a context? Of course we do, more than ever. Madam President, you've referred to an impasse for your political group because the EPP has been making alliances of convenience with the far right. Who are your real allies in this parliament, I would ask you? Who are your true allies? You're going to have to choose. We elected a commission president. None of us have signed this motion of censure. I hope you have noted that. I would note, though, that this debate comes at an appropriate juncture. We do have comments in the Parliament on transparency and governance. Before giving lessons, the far right and the EPP, your own political family, Madam President, should stop blocking the establishment of an ethics body. And it's not just transparency. We need the right institutional balance. We need to cooperate with the friends of Europe. We need to give them a response. So for green claims, play by the rules. Failing to do that was a big mistake. And these games that have been going on for a year need to stop. Another point, Madam President. What is Europe doing with the Draghi report, with the Capitals Market Union, protection of minors on social media, fake news and interference through online platforms? The Commission is centralised, it's stiff, it's not agile. In Renew Europe, we've defended the majority that put you in place on a pro-European basis. And now there's a problem that method is coming into question because of ideology, because of poor calculations in the Commission about the balance of power in the European Parliament. So I'm terribly sorry, but don't take anything for granted. Please put your own political house in order. Get a grip so that we can work together with you to achieve what we jointly wish to achieve.
Now I give the floor to the co-chair of the Green Group, Bas Eickhout. 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. This motion should be about transparency, fighting corruption, etc. Corruption by the far right. Most corruption cases are within your ranks. And I find it quite condemning that Mr. Leggeri is talking about all kinds of scandals without mentioning all the scandals under your leadership in Frontex. Or on transparency, you've been blocking any initiative that we took to get transparency in this House. And when there was a real issue of transparency, we, as Greens, are taking the European Commission to court on the contracts of the vaccines. Where were you when we were fighting in court? This just shows you one thing. This is one big political show of the far right. To undermine democracy, to undermine our Europe, to undermine European democracy. That's what they're doing. And that does bring me to the EPP, Mr. Weber. You didn't want lectures, but sorry. When you are talking about there are new majorities, which majority are you talking about? There is no right-wing majority without the far right. So if you talk about new majorities, you are talking about a majority with them. And I can just quote President of the Commission talking about extremists eroding democracy, that they are only doing conspiracy theories. You are feeding that beast, and at a certain moment the beast will eat you. This means it's time for a cordon sanitaire, and a cordon sanitaire means not supporting their amendments, which EPP is still doing. It also means not pushing their agenda on fighting NGOs, on getting migration files with the help of the far right, to kill the Green Deal files like the Green claims. That's what you're doing together with the far right. That, of course, also brings me to the ECR. Lovely speech. The first signatory is from your group. Your co-president is one of the co-signers of this. Where does ECR stand? Mr. Weber, you said we are having one criteria that's pro-Ukraine, pro-democracy, pro-Europe. I think after today it's clear ECR doesn't fit that criteria. So no, there is no left-wing majority in this House, but there is also no right-wing majority in this House. There is a majority of the centre parties and the pro-European democratic parties. Let's work on that. We have work to do together. It's now time to deliver on a green economy. It's time to deliver on social justice. It's time to deliver on peace. And we cannot do that with the far right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Eickhout. I give the floor now to the co-chair of the Left Group, Martin Schuldemann. 2 minutes.
Thank you, President. Well, once again, we've got a corruption case. But it's the right-wingers who are pointing at the Commission, saying, look at the corrupt thieves. Well, is that the situation in the European institutions in 2025? Mrs. von der Leyen, you have been so untransparent that you've been playing their game. Europe needs the courage for a change of policies that creates social justice, that creates peace and protects the environment and the climate. That's what we need from the Commission, and that's why Europe needs a new political idea and a new political leadership. In Trump's trade war, we're going to see our industry and jobs suffering, and you're passive. Sometimes you announce something, such as introducing a European digital tax, but no, you're afraid of annoying the big tech companies from the US and China. The Green Deal was sold by you as the Europe's man on the moon moment, but your own political family family is working with the far right to roll it back. You talk about climate change, but it seems like the new policies are going to be a climate catastrophe. Your policies damage human rights. You cannot enforce the rule of law, and you're letting people like Orban and Maloney wrap you around their little finger. And there are breaches of international law in the Middle East and Gaza. You say nothing, and your only idea of diplomacy is reinforcing the profits of defense companies with hundreds of billions of public money, whereas the rest of society is going to be forced into cutbacks. This is your devastating political result. Mrs. von der Leyen, your politics have led to a situation where the right wing can perform its theatre and make democracy look ridiculous. We need to pull the rug out from under these policies. Mrs. von der Leyen, your commission will find its hardest political opponents in us. Thank you very much.
And now for the ESN group, René Aust, 1.5 minutes.
Well, wherever Ursula von der Leyen is given responsibilities, harm follows in her wake. She was family minister in Germany. 20 years ago, she wanted to introduce the first blocks on the internet. That gave her the nickname Ursula in Germany. And since then, we've seen skyrocketing costs for consultancy contracts. Then she was Labour minister, and she spent millions on external consultants, millions on her own self-promotion, but not anything for the unemployed. Then she was defence minister. Again, consultancy corruptions and lots of mobile data going missing. We had pregnancy uniforms, we had tanks suitable for the pregnant. Today, our country and our continent is rightly complaining that we are unfit to defend ourselves, and Mrs. von der Leyen is largely responsible for this. And then now, for 6 years, she has been bringing destruction to the European level. 5 years of the Green Deal, which led to deindustrialization in large parts of Europe. People lost their jobs, their income, their existence. Then, 5 or 6 years ago, the EU external borders were opened. Millions of social migrants came in without any checks whatsoever. And then, hovering over all of this, the Pfizer-Gate scandal. The unlawful refusal to hand over SMS data, the suspicion of waste and mismanagement when it came to the COVID recovery fund, the improper use of Article 122. But look at the majorities. The majorities are now different. People are looking differently towards Brussels. That is why on Thursday we will be paving the way for a new commission that will protect our borders, will protect our freedom of opinion, will protect our welfare and our well-being. That is why on Thursday we shall be sending you to your undeserved retirement, Mrs. von der Leyen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So that concludes this debate. The President of the Commission has said all she has to say in the beginning of the debate, and that's something that we can now close with. So I have received one motion for resolution to wind up this debate, and the vote will be held on Thursday. We will now move to the point of order. I give the floor to Ms. Cecilia Maria Strada. Okay, no, is Ms. Strada here? No, then I give the floor to Ms. Eva Zahajowska-Hernik. Okay, wait now, because I've given the floor to your colleague. Unless she's also not listening. Okay, Ms. Strada, back to you. (715).
Not working.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to raise a point of order on a possible